All right, welcome back again to another episode of the Contrarians. This is one of our regular Contrarians show, where it's the original concept where one of the team has a pick for favorite album by a band that is possibly not the usual kind of pick. So it is our original Contrarians concept, but we do have a guest wise music Swami today. Jamie Laszlo's here with us, and we're going to be talking about Van Halen. I'm not going to let on what his pick is yet, but just a brief introduction of Van Halen. First of all, everybody knows who they are, so I'm not going to say too much about them. But obviously, massive band. An interesting thing is they come in at that cusp between kind of an old school American hard rock and a new school American hard rock to start up again in about 1983. So they're just dropping in at 1978 like an atomic punk, an atomic bomb, and they're big stars right off the bat. Obviously, they run into a little bit of LSD problems later on, lead singer disease, and they lose David Lee Roth after the monumental 1984 album. Sammy Hagar comes in. And then it's it's firing on all cylinders again for kind of the hair metal years. But then there starts to be problems with, between Sammy and the rest of the guys. Eddie's always with Alex. Sammy's Michael's buddy. There's management problems. The albums start getting sort of spread out more and more and more. There's drinking problems. And eventually we do get a surprise last Van Halen studio album, which is actually with David Lee Roth. And it's actually really heavy and raw, a different kind of truth. So yeah, all along the way, everything kind of gets more spread out. There's more drama, but there are albums later on, and what do we get, Jamie? We get 1, 2, 3, 4 albums with Sammy Hagar in total, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a live album with Sammy Hagar, and then there's a later live album with David Lee Roth, which gets a lot of abuse because they kind of let David be David, and it's a little raw on the vocal front, I would say, right? Right. So there's your survey of Van Halen. I'm going to turn it over to Jamie now, who's going to tell us his pick for his favorite Van Halen album of all time, and probably give you a little bit of a survey of what he thinks of the other ones as well. Take it away, Jamie.
Yeah. All right, Van Halen, one of those few bands, I think, that the casual rock fan can name every member. Kind of like the Beatles. Yeah. Kind of like Kiss. So going, and I mean, if your bass player is a household name, I think you're doing something right. Yeah. Everybody knows Michael.
Good point. Yeah.
So my list of favorite Van Halen albums, not too contrarian. I made props for you guys, just in case. Nice. I didn't want you to think I only make props for Sea of Tranquility and Pete over there. I love you guys too. So I don't know if you could see very well, but
see that
my list is not too contrarian. I mean, maybe Diver Down is a little high, 1984 is a little low, someone could say, but nothing too crazy until contrarian time.
Nice.
What's that doing at number one? And it's so weird that the other Sammy Hagar albums are so, and then For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge is number one. So let's go up to the top real quick here.
Okay.
Van Halen 3. Do you know anyone who likes this album, Martin?
Definitely not. And we did a Contrarians episode on worst. We have a whole worst album show, and we did Van Halen, and it was Van Halen 3.
Well, not only are the songs bad, but it's 65 minutes long with 12 songs. And you take away 2 of those songs because they're quick instrumentals or intros, and you've got this song, 10 songs, 65 minutes, 63 minutes. And that averages out to be 6.2 minutes a song. For a band that used to do so much in 3 minutes, they are doing nothing in 6.2 minutes with these songs. Yeah. And From Afar is probably the worst Van Halen song ever. There is a guy on Amazon. I like to read Amazon reviews because they're always blown out of proportion. Guy said, masterpiece, best Van Halen album ever. We get on the show to defend this album. So that was, forgot my props. Van Halen 3. I never even owned this until this week. I bought it just for a prop, and then I almost forgot to show it. Next, OU 812. Not a big fan of this album. It starts off all right with Mine, All Mine, but here's my problem with this album. Not only does it sound like demos, but did you ever listen? There you go. Did you ever listen to an album, Martin, and like one of your stereo speakers is out, and some of the sounds that come out of that speaker, maybe guitar parts or keyboard parts, are missing because you're only listening to the left speaker?
Absolutely.
This album sounds like the right speaker is out, and you're only getting half the sounds. Like
right.
You listen to like Feel So Good, and that keyboard comes in, that soft notes, so soft that it's almost like you could blow in the direction of the song and the notes will just float away.
Yeah.
And yeah, you feel like you're getting half the album. Where's the other half of the music? So number 10, going with Balance.
Yeah.
Not a total disaster. It kind of has the same production value as For Unlawful, but it sounds like a lot of songs are the songs they wrote for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge and threw in the waste paper basket. And when they wanted to do this album, they said, hey, dig those songs back out. I don't think they're too bad. Stick them on this album. But I mean, it has Can't Stop Loving You. My mother loves that song, for what it's worth. That tells you a lot about that song. But, you know, it has Big Fat Money. It's one of those songs where you go, Big Fat Money, when you first buy the CD. That one's going to suck. You can just tell by the title. So it's not anywhere near my number one because even though there's good parts, it's very disjointed. Next one, 5150. Big deal when this came out. My problem with this album is it's very rare for me to say this. I like the hits. The deeper cuts, I don't care for that much. Get Up is fast and heavy, but it's annoying. And right when it starts off this album, you got Sammy going, hello, baby. I'm annoyed right off the bat with that. You know, it's a heavy song, and you got Sammy doing a hey, waitress part in the middle. And I think that's the band saying, hey, see, Sammy, he can ham it up too. We're still Van Halen. But I do like Dreams. I do like, what's the other hits on here? Love Comes Walking In. Why Can't This Be Love? You know, I don't understand. Those are great songs. I don't understand some guys who say, Van Hagar, they're too wimpy for me. Now, where'd my Slaughter album go? You know, get that Van Hagar away from me. I'm looking for my Winger CD. I'll never get that or understand that.
Yeah.
Number 8, Different Kind of Truth. Look, this is a good album. We're getting into good albums now. This is a solid album. The problem I have with this album is you got 3 guys playing instruments with David Lee Roth up front. And sometimes when you have 3 guys playing, it's like Rush. Sounds massive. You're like, how is 3 guys making all this music? And then on the other hand, you have 3 guys like ZZ Top on those early albums. You're like, that sounds like 3 guys. I like my Van Halen to be a little bit bigger sounding. This sounds like 3 guys playing, and it sounds like they're batting out the songs real quick in the studio live with no overdubs. I do like Stay Frosty a lot because I think by the time you get to Stay Frosty on track number, what is that, 9, 11, your ears are a bit fatigued from Eddie's heavy album. And when that acoustic guitar comes in, it's welcoming. And then you got the electric guitars being overlapped on the acoustic, and now you got texture. And this album doesn't have enough texture for me. It's Eddie going crazy on the guitar to make up for the lack of texture, in my opinion. I'm flying, Martin. I could talk about every song on every album. I got notes on every song, but I won't bore you guys. Okay. Try to keep this under 30 minutes. 1984, number 7. Why is this, not higher? People might say, well, he just must be sick of the hits. I actually can still jam out the Panama and Jump. And even I'll Wait, co-written by Bryan Adams, and it sounds like it was co-written by Bryan Adams. Pop Jimmy, Drop Dead Legs are solid, but I think it whimpers out, even though they're heavy songs. Girl Gone Bad and House of Pain, it kind of ends on filler for me. I think, Martin, you're on record as saying every song could have been a hit on this.
Yeah.
I disagree with House of Pain and Girl Gone Bad. They don't sound like radio hits to me. Right. Solid.
I mean,
album.
every song could have been released as a single just for fun, almost.
Yeah, just for fun. Look what we're doing. What do you think of that? So not near my number 1. Diver Down, I think this is the redheaded stepchild of Van Halen albums, and it happens to be a red cover. I get what people say. Yeah, there's covers on here. Yeah, there's too many short songs. But, you take away the short songs, and you still got 8 songs on here. You know what else has 8 songs? Women and Children First. So, Oh Pretty Woman, I still like that song. Where Have All the Good Times Gone? Heavy. Secrets is a badass song. There is filler on here, but it's good filler. It's like the nougat in a Three Musketeers or Snickers bar. Good nougat. It's not bad filler like the coconut in a almond joy. That's bad filler. Nobody wants that. This is good filler. Number Women and Children First. And the Cradle Will Rock. Everybody wants some. You must hate when you have to do a book on Van Halen because they got exclamation points, and this one has 2, and that one has 1. But I'm curious, when you have to type dirty movies, do you put quotes around dirty movies and then quotes around the quotes when you have to write it?
Yes, you have to look up all this stuff constantly. The other day I had to look up Judas Priest. You've got another thing coming again. Is it you? Is it you? Is it coming with an apostrophe? There's all these things you constantly look it up. I still have to look up Rudolf Schenker. Is it an F or is it a PH? I had to do that this morning.
Yeah, sometimes I get confused on my Stevens. Is it a PH or a V? Stephen King, Stephen Wilson, Stephen Stills. Not that I write books about them. Anyways, this album does have loss of control, which I kind of find annoying. The part loss of control.
Check this out, Jamie. There it is.
There you go.
Big poster that came with this.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Nice. I was going to make comments about that picture, but I will not. It has In a Simple Rhyme, which is a great Van Halen deep cut. Could This Be Magic? David Lee Roth hamming it up. So could it be my number one? It's lacking a little bit of magic, I think. Taking the song title, Could This Be Magic? It's great, but it's not magic. Van Halen 2, the Party album. First 3 songs, barely over 3 minutes long. You're No Good, a cover song. They always got to throw in those cover songs in the early albums. It's great. It's heavy. Dance the Night Away is wonderful. You know what I love about Dance the Night Away? It's like Van Halen wrote an R&B 60s song on purpose, like performed it, recorded it somewhere without releasing it, made it like a 60s R&B song, and then covered their own song and Van Halen'd it up, rocked it up. That's what it sounds like to me. Somebody get me a doctor. Man, we used to know how to party back in the day, Martin. We used to rock and roll. These kids listening to, humans evolve, okay? I'm assuming our feet have evolved like millions of years ago. They were soft and then they got harder so we could walk on stones without hurting ourselves. But in recent times, the human ear is devolving and getting softer. People can't handle hard rock anymore, younger people. Younger people have turned into our grandparents. Ooh, turn off that loud music. It's too heavy. What has happened? I do not know. But Beautiful Girls, great summertime song. It's right on the cusp of my top 3. And my top 3 can interchange. They're always changing around. They're so close. When I made my top 3 here, I basically said, which one is number 1 in my mind the most often? And then I made that my number 1. So the self-titled is 3. Look, one of the most impressive things you can do in music, in my mind, is make a landmark album, one that changes the course of history. Only a handful of artists have done it. Zeppelin, Sabbath, Boston, Van Halen, Nirvana. There's only a few bands that have done it. So this is their biggest achievement. All right. And it's great. Running with the Devil. When people put the needle down for the first time and heard that dum, dum, boom. It must have sounded like a monster coming down their hallway towards their bedroom. Now, Jamie's Crying, I used to think it was really cool. My name was in the song when I was a kid. Even though it was associated with crying, I'll still take it. I'm not as big as a fan of that song as I used to be. I know people always had a problem with it, and I didn't. But now I'm kind of seeing their point. But I mean, Eruption is iconic. But it's not one I grab for the most often because, you know, you get burned out on albums. But when I'm in the mood, man, ooh, it hits the spot. And for that moment, I'm like, maybe this is my number one. But Fair Warning is an album that has grown on me more and more and more as the decades go on. This is a dark album. And I mean, it's been number one in my mind a few times, but it's in second place how often it's in first place. Mean Street, one of my favorite songs by Van Halen. Dirty Movies, Sinner's Swing. How dark is this album? In 1981, David Lee Roth dropped an F-bomb on this album. That's how dark this album is. And it's brown sounding, and it's dark, and it's a brown album cover. So a little Unchained is almost as good as Mean Street. But, I mean, it ends with So This Is Love, which is okay. It's good. But Sunday Afternoon in the Park, which is kind of like a prog piece going into One Foot Out the Door. What a great album, and what a little bit of a whimper to go out on with those two songs. So that's a little disappointing, but we're splitting hairs here between 1, 2, and 3. So I have to find something, a reason why it's 2 and not 1, right? Mm-hmm. Which brings us to the reason why we're here. And everybody's out there is going, oh, Laszlo, how is this your number one?
Yeah.
Well, this is a great drinking album, Martin. And I took notes on every album. So I decided notes on this album while drinking last Saturday. Had some football games on. And I would read from my notes that day. I can't read my handwriting because I was at least 8 beers in. So I took these notes and I tried to read it as best as I can and type them out. So for Unlawful. Let me just say, let me get Van Halen 1. So for over a decade before Unlawful Carnal Knowledge came out, it's easier to say it the other way, but I won't. This was my favorite, all right? This was the old Ball and Chain. Married to it for at least 10 years, 11, 12 years. And in 1991, this little mistress came into my life. It was new, it was fresh, it was sexy. And I loved it. And for years, it said, come on, get rid of the Ball and Chain. Admit that I'm your favorite. And I wouldn't do it, Martin, for years. And then one day, I pulled the trigger and I said, all right, for Unlawful, I'll pull the trigger. You're my favorite now. Now, that doesn't mean that I never cheated on the mistress with the old Ball and Chain. Heck, we've even had threesomes. Are you disturbed yet? But for the most part, my mistress now is the Ball and Chain. Pound Cake, you know, they're late into their career and they're doing cool stuff like bringing a drill into it. And this is a year before Jackal did the thing with the chainsaw, a year before that. And I love how you hear the feedback as you picture the drill coming closer to the guitar and then the zzz, and the homegrown down home. What a killer chorus. Judgment Day, heavy without sounding like they're trying too hard to be heavy. And the chorus is so melodic. Tell me why should I, that it breaks up the heaviness just enough. And then it goes into a second chorus, put it out until Judgment Day. So you get 2 choruses for the price of 1. 1 heavy, 1 melodic. Now that is literally the best of both worlds. Spanked, least favorite song on the album, but still good. I just wish they didn't have the lyrics, "Who are you going to call?" Because what are you thinking right away, Martin? You're thinking Ghostbusters. You just change that line up a little bit. I understand what the song is about, but just change that. Run Around, great song. When I'm hearing that song, and I'm 8 beers in, like I was when I was listening to this last Saturday, I feel like I'm performing in the round and spinning around, pointing to a non-existent audience. That's why I love this album. It makes me do goofy things. I sing, I dance. Another thing about this album is most Van Halen albums, I air guitar to. This one I air bass to. Michael Anthony is going nuts on this album. There's great bottom end on this album. And I wish they would re-release it on vinyl because it's a little pricey to get a original vinyl copy. But I bet that bottom end is even more pronounced when you play it on vinyl. Pleasure Dome, dark song. When Sammy's doing his spoken word part, it reminds me of like a guy at the end of a bar mumbling to himself about how life sucks. And you go up to him and you say, "Hey, man, is everything all right?" And he turns around and goes, "Into a world so far from home." Sorry, man. I'll leave you be. But it's a dark but fun song. Fun and dark, just like your favorite dive bar. I told you I was drinking, Martin, when I took my notes, so there might be some drinking references.
No worries. Loving it.
In and Out has a groove that might have sucked if it was on OU 812, but it's not. It's on this album where both speakers are working. Now, a groove is like bricks, Martin. You can have just a groove, but it's bricks on top of one another without the cement in the middle. It's a wall, but it's not very sturdy. You need the textures of the background noise and everything, and guitars and maybe keyboards to act as the cement to keep the groove solid. That's what this song has. Man on a Mission, very similar to that. And then you get to the big finale on this album. We're going to call it the last three songs because 316 is in there, but that's just Eddie hijacking the studio like he does all the time for his 1 or 2 minute little jam. The Dream is Over. Dream Another Dream, This Dream is Over chorus, I just find to be pure magic. It's a pop song, a great pop song wrapped up into a rock song. Perfect marriage. Right Now you're getting to Right Now at track 9. And most of the time when I listen to this album still, I'm like, I forgot this song was on it. Their biggest hit is buried deep into this album. And I call it the Sammy Hagar Jump. It's kind of like their version of Jump. And I don't know why it's not a classic rock staple to this day. I mean, you hear the same 4 songs by Van Halen on classic rock radio, and it's never Right Now. And I love how it starts with a heavy, deep keyboard sound and ends with a heavy, deep keyboard sound and kind of bookends the song. Yeah, maybe some people will call this song cheesy. I think it's great. Then you got the 316 and then Top of the World. I mean, then you almost forget this song is on the album too. A radio hit as the last track, that's very uncommon. And it might be the most fun song on the album. It's either the most fun song on the album or I'm a little bit more drunk towards the end than I was at the beginning of the album. I don't know. But yeah, but the song makes me want to just start the album over again. A lot of these other albums end on a whimper or filler. This is solid all the way through. Even the clunkers are 3.5 star songs to me, and they're in the middle. And when you know the best songs are coming towards the end, it makes an album better because you're kind of anticipating the end. But I took a poll, Martin, on Facebook of where you would rank this album for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge on 1 to 12 if you were ranking all the albums. I got 88 votes. Okay. Now, the number one thing that got the most votes, 23 votes, is number 8. I have a different kind of truth there. Coming in a second with 17 votes is number 6. So literally middle of the pack. 2 people picked it to be number 12. So 2 people out there think Van Halen 3 is better than this album.
Wow.
How many votes, Martin, do you think it got for number 1 out of 88, if you had to guess?
For number 1, eh? I would say out of 88 votes, I'll go with 2.
It got more than I expected, 6.
Okay.
So there's 6 people out there I can kick it with. Come on over. My bar holds 7 people. So there you go, Martin. Now it's your job to sit there and act like a good psychologist and tell me why I'm crazy. Maybe prescribe some meds to me.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll start off with why you're somewhat right, because I've always felt, hands down, and I've told anybody who wants to hear it, that this is my favorite Van Hagar album. I mean, OU812, don't like it very much. I mean, I love Mine, All Mine, but it's 42 minutes long. This one, I think, is 52 or 53 minutes long. So this is, I did an episode of my History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff podcast called Go to Vancouver and Try Harder. They didn't go to Vancouver with this album, but it's exactly like every one of those Try Harder in 1991 or 1992 albums. That's exactly what they're doing. It's a Kiss Revenge. It's a Motley Crue Dr. Feelgood. It's a Whitesnake. That's a little early, but it's an AC/DC Razor's Edge. Bon Jovi. Who else does this? Scorpions, Crazy World, maybe. So this is Van Halen saying grunge is coming. We're being swept away. Hair metal is over. We've got to get serious. And to me, this is a serious album. It's got a lot of meat on it, and they're really working hard, and it's good. And it's a heavy album, as you say. So I'm with you on that. Now, in terms of how you're wrong, it's pretty wild. So in terms of sales, Van Halen is diamond in the States for sales of over 10 million copies. 1984 is diamond in the States. Same thing. 5150, first one was Sammy, 6 times platinum. 2 is 5 times platinum. Diver Down and OU812 are 4 times platinum. For Unlawful is only 3 times platinum. So you're wrong on the sales end, voting with your dollar. Live, in terms of the most played songs, right now is the first song that comes up in the set list as played however many times, and it's 18th in the Van Halen catalog. So it's, you could put a whole set list together and not get to right now, roughly speaking, right? Top of the World comes in 26th, so that's the most next played song off of this album. That song, it's funny when I'm listening to you talk about it, I almost do feel like it was the beers talking at that point, because when I'm at that song, I'm almost feeling that it's a little bit housewifey, the same way most of OU812 and 5150 is. That chorus, that verse and that chorus, I'm a little checking out by that point, right?
Is that
not
why
really
I always want to vacuum the floor while listening to it?
Exactly. Yes. I want to break free. Runaround comes in at 27th, so right behind it. Pound Cake comes in at 31st. Judgment Day is way down. So it's not high on the list of albums they played. In my poll for this book, which is still available, Unchained, it's sort of still available. I've run out a couple of times on it, but I just did 100 more copies, which I'm getting late next week. And I still have this one as well, the Van Halen Coffee Table book, visual biography. But this is a nice, big, thick, academic, massive, lots and lots of words book. And we did a poll in there of greatest guitar solos, first of all. And right now came in as the 22nd. I think I did 25 or 40 guitar solos. Right now came in 22nd. Pound Cake came in at 25th. And in my poll for top albums, For Unlawful came in 8th out of the 12 albums. Now, a few other ones. First of all, let me say this. In terms of my favorite Van Halen albums, just like many Van Halen fans, it has to be one of the Dave albums. And I've gone all over the place between Fair Warning, Women and Children First, the first one. I'm pretty sure it's not Diver Down, and I'm pretty sure it's not 2 for me.
Would you have Diver Down lower than this?
Yes, I definitely would. 1984's come up in my list quite a bit. I really like Different Kind of Truth as well. But the debut album is a funny one, and I've talked about this on a few different things. I think we did it on, I did a couple episodes of History in 5 Songs where I've talked about it for various reasons. But to me, that's the only album that that it's the least brown sound album of theirs, and it's the most professional album of their entire career. It sounds absolutely perfect and great, but it also sounds conservative, and the songs sound more meticulously put together than they ever would again. When they get to Van Halen 2, they're the Who all of a sudden, right? And the interesting thing about Van Halen 1 is that it's the most ambitious Van Halen with David Lee Roth album, and For Unlawful is by far the most ambitious album with Sammy, right? So that brings me to what the world out there thinks. Essentially, everywhere I looked, well, I'll go in order here. Ultimate Classic Rock ranked For Unlawful 10th out of 12 albums. It's actually coming in lower than I actually thought when I went and looked at the actual polls. Van Halen 1 came in first, then 1984, then Fair Warning, then Women and Children First, then 2. And they say, apart from the massive piano lead right now, it is the most straight ahead guitar focused album of the Van Hager era. Absolutely. The problem is you find yourself missing the diversity of OU 812 and 5150 bit. Interesting point, but to me, both of those are pretty fluffy albums, and I'm way more on board with For Unlawful, with the heft and the heaviness and the seriousnness, right? Yes. Rolling Stone only ranked the top 10 Van Halen albums. Really stupid, right? But they had the debut as number 1, and then Fair Warning. They ranked For Unlawful 10th out of the top 10 of 12 Van Halen
including
albums.
Van Halen.
I'm shocked.
Van Halen 3.
No, they didn't. No. Guitar World reader poll. So Guitar World went out and took a reader poll. They ranked For Unlawful 7th out of 12, and they had the debut and then Fair Warning. Loudwire ranked it 7 out of 12 also, and they had the debut and then Fair Warning. And then Consequence had it 10th out of 12 albums. I'm shocked myself, honestly, Jamie. I mean, I would put it certainly in the middle somewhere, right? And it is my highest Van Hager, like I say. And then they had the debut, and then they had 1984. Team Rock Van Halen News Desk they had the 2 live albums in there, so they had 14 albums, and it ended up 8th, so right in the middle of the pack again, even lower. Toronto Star did something. They had the debut and then Fair Warning, and they did a top 10 and had it 10th as well. And Ranker, which is sort of putting it all together, a synthesis of ranks, had it 8th. With the debut as number 1, 1984's 2. Poser had it 8th with the debut in 1984. So what is the trend here also? The trend with everything I just said, every single one of them ranked the debut as the greatest Van Halen album. And I'm inclined to be in there sometimes, like you, possibly a little bit of the burnout factor, but I also want to give it a little bit of a slap on the wrist with a ruler, just because it's the safe one and it's the non-brown sound album. I think it's really the only one. Other ones have varying degrees of brown sound. Oddly enough, I think the most brown sound album they ever made was OU 812, which is Sammy Hager, and it's also ostensibly produced by Mick Jones, but to me, that's as radical as they get. Actually, as radical as they get. My latest episode of History in 5 Songs, I did this thing called Greatest Hits Plus, and it was about those extra songs stuck on Greatest Hits packages. And I think Up for Breakfast and what's the other one called? Up for Breakfast and
EY's Magic.
No, it's got one title, one word. It says it's the Sammy Hager song that they did at the same time as Up for Breakfast. Anyways, those 2 songs are the most brown sound they ever got. They're absolutely crushing, heavy, stomping, everything's brown on it, right? Kind of thing. Because I think a big part of the brown sound, as much as Eddie, is Alex in the brown sound as well. So that's all I wanted to mention. Anything you wanted to add before we wrap up? Is there anything we missed? So I guess we've shown in the various ways it's actually lower than probably both of us ever thought. And Van Halen, this is one where there's really only one clear choice, apparently.
I think a lot of those people that made those lists and put the debut at number 1, they're saying that's the best on paper, the best. Now, a lot of those people that put it at number 1, do they have a favorite that's not the debut? Probably, but it's hard to deny that album as being their greatest achievement. So they put it at number 1.
Yeah.
And hey, don't listen to me, guys. This guy wrote 2 books on Van Halen. I just took some drunken notes on a Saturday. So I'm just one guy in Ohio, Martin, with an opinion.
No, that was beautiful. That was a great rundown of that album and the other albums. You make a lot of really cool points that we don't often hear. So there you go, everybody. Let us know in the comments below. I thought Jamie was an awesome guest on this episode. I think we definitely solved the world's problems as they pertain to Van Halen. Let us know in the comments below what you think. We've also got a Patreon situation if you want to subscribe there.
And t-shirts and coffee mugs.
And yes, absolutely. That's just brand new. Marco just put all that together. Yeah. So yeah, let us know what you think. And otherwise, go play some Van Halen.
That's it, dude.